Hey guys, welcome to Cyborg Kitty. Today we are gonna check out some layout stylings in Bootstrap and see how you can use layouts to make your site more responsive. It's one of the most important parts of Bootstrap, being that would help you achieve the mobile first approach for your site. So I'm just going to give you a quick rundown on different options that are available as far as the layouts go and see how you can use them on your site. So first thing we're going to cover is containers. So containers, as the name itself says, you can throw anything in there. So it has some fixed styling from Bootstrap CSS that I'm going to show you what the difference between container and container fluid is. So let me just quickly type down the div class here, div class container. There we go. Let's get the container fluid in there. Okay, so we got container and container fluid. I'm just gonna get some text from here, post it there, and here. I'm just gonna give this a quick background color so you can see the difference. All right, so I think we are ready. Let's just go here, reset. So there you go. So for container, what happens is it kind of stops growing after a certain screen width. So basically, let's say after your screen width goes higher than 1140 pixels, the width for the container stops at 1140. It does not grow bigger than that. So at some point, you do have a chance to put, okay, I don't want this container to go higher than this width, and that's it. It's almost like maximum width, that's it. And then for the container fluid, it pretty much adjusts with the screen width itself and just goes back and forth depending on what the size of the screen is. And one more thing that you can observe with container and container fluid is the container comes with this little bit of, what is that? I believe it's padding. Yeah, there we go. So container comes with a little bit of padding on left and right, while container fluid does not. So at some point, they all look the same, but if you see in between a small to a large size screen, you can see the difference between container and container fluid. All right, so that's a little bit about container and container fluid. And the next thing we're going to talk about is columns and rows. Like any table where you have rows and columns together, Bootstrap comes with the layout the format of 12 columns, so each row can handle up to 12 columns. So if you specify any div elements with more than 12 columns, when I mean more than 12, that would be let's say you have breakdown of 6 columns and another div element with 7 columns, and you try to put them on a row. What happens is the one with the 7 columns at the end kind of breaks down and goes into the next next line. I'm going to show you what I mean. So let's first nest the column elements in row. So we're going to have a one row, just think of a table. So we'll have a row class in which we'll have two column classes. Let's say we have column with 6 elements, and here we're gonna have column with 7 elements. And let's just save that. And I'm gonna give that a little background color. There we go. And now, if you refresh it, you could see how it breaks down. So, for example, if you actually make it into a perfect 12 or even less, it kind of takes up the column width. So here you have 11 columns, 6 and 5, and then the one column is left out. So that's briefly about what actually columns are. And now we're going to talk a little bit about breakpoints. So the basic column format is you have COL for column and then a dash and then breakpoint. Breakpoint indicates at which screen width how you want it to show. And then this is just the number of columns that you would like to assign to that element for that particular breakpoint. So you have extra large screens, you have large screens, you have medium, small, and then the smallest of all. So the difference is, let's say if you mention, when I say dash, it means you just don't have to mention anything. You would just write like something like call COL and then 12. So what I mean is if you have something like this and you did not mention any of these breaking points, what it automatically does, it finds the lowest, not, I shouldn't say lowest, it finds the next available breakpoint styling and applies it to medium, large, and extra large. So if you mentioned this and you didn't mention any styling for medium, large, or extra large screens, it's automatically going to take the number of columns you assigned for the small device screen width and then use it for the rest of them. That's why if you did not mention anything and just say COL and then put the column there and did not have anything else mentioned for that development, what happens is that that styling is applied to all the device screen widths. It does not matter. Let's give it a try, see how it works out. So let's say I have it set to 6 columns when it's the smallest, and then when I have it on small screens, I want it to take 8 columns, and then when I have it on like a medium, no, let's do large. For large screens, I want it to take 2 columns instead. So now let's see how this affects our layout. This, so right now we are on a large, we are actually on an extra large screen size, which because it's greater than 1200. But what happened is since we didn't have anything mentioned for extra large, we only have it for large. It goes for the next available styling, which is the large screen and takes 2 columns. So here you go, we have 2 columns taken, and this here we only have mentioned for the smallest screen and no other styling. So it's just going to stick to the 5 columns and stay there. So now we're going to try and go lower to the smaller screen, see how it changes the breakpoint to 8. So we're still in large now, and then now we actually passed medium, and now we're going to go to small. There we go. So now we are on small screen. So on small, we said, sorry about that. So there you go. So right now we are still on the large screen. So we just keep going to the small screen and you can actually see that it broke down. Let's see. So this is the first column and this is the second one because we already have 8 mentioned here and this is 5. So that makes it 13. So it kind of breaks it into 2 lines. We can actually make it a little better. Let's do background. So there we go. Now you can see the difference. So now if I go smaller and smaller to after a certain point where the smallest screens, we have it 6 and 5. That is, it takes 11 columns and it pretty much stays there. It does not go anywhere after that. We have this one column left out and then you just keep going no matter how small you go. It pretty much takes up the same width. So that's the bit concept of how the columns and the breakpoints work for Bootstrap. The next thing we're going to take a look at is column auto. So what does the keyword auto do? So let's just say, for example, you know you want this to have 5 width, but you're not sure what width you want this set to. You just want it to take whatever width that it needs to take to fit this content. So we're just going to do that and take that out and do auto. If you actually refresh it now, you can see that it automatically takes up the size of the sentence. And then this one, since we have it mentioned to 5 columns, it's going to take the 5 column width. So if you keep going smaller, you can see that it still keeps its width, and then the rest of them just keeps scaling as per the width of the element there. So that's what the auto keyword does. And of course, auto keyword you can also use along with the breakpoint. So you can, let's say, have it set to medium. Now we are on a large screen. So it's going to stay like that till we are medium. See, as soon as you go off that medium breakpoint, it's just going to break and have a normal 12 column, take over the 12 column width and stay that way. There we go. Okay, that's a little bit about column auto keyword. So we covered basic columns, we have column auto, and the next I'm going to show you is just column, just nothing specified. Let's just say you have this set to 5 and you're like, hey, I want to have 2 different columns on both ends and I want them to have equal width. But now that you already specified 5 columns, and then you're only left with 7. You can't really break it into even to have them both the same width. So what you can do in that case is just say column and say nothing. So what it does is the Bootstrap sets the styling in a way that you only have this set to 5 column width, and whatever the rest of the width is pretty much gets broken down to both of them. So let's see. Oh, I didn't save that. Let's save it. Refresh. There we go. So that's a little bit about column keyword. Next thing I want to show you is, let's just say you want to remove this for a second here, and then we're going to talk about some alignment. So I'm just going to take this out and then copy paste it here. So we have a perfect row with two different columns, and I'm just going to remove the content. So we get two different heights here. So we have one div element with 5 columns, another with 7 columns. That totally makes it 12. And you can see how, even though they have the equal height, you can see that they're not really um, aligned in the center when I'm talking about vertical alignment. Let's just say you want to have these aligned vertically. In vertical alignment, you have two different ways that you can specify vertical alignment. One is the column vertical alignment. Let's just say you don't want to disturb anything else to do with this row. You just want this particular column to align its content in the center. So all you would do is align self center and then save that, and let's just refresh it here. There we go. So what happens at this point is the content in here gets aligned in center with the rest of the column's height. And let's just say that's not what you want. Instead, you want to just center the whole row elements. The reason why I'm adding one more is because this way you would be able to see what I mean. I'm just going to give it 3. And I'm going to take it down to 4. There we go. Let me just take the width of it a little bit and save it. So now we just have one column specified to have alignment of center in vertical alignment for the column. So you can see that these two columns are just by default aligned to the starting or the top, and the center one, since we mentioned the alignment to be in the center, it takes up the center alignment. So let's say that's not what you want. You want all your columns to actually have alignment of center. What you would do instead of mentioning it in the column is you would actually mention it in the row itself. So instead of self, it's going to be items because you want to align the items in the row. And that's center. Now if you refresh it, you could see that all the elements in the row will be centered down. So here we covered a little bit about alignment, and in alignment itself, for alignment self or alignment items, you would have 3 different options. You can do it at the start, which is the default, or you can do it at the center, the one that I showed you just now, or you can do it at the end. And pretty much does the opposite to the start. It pretty much aligns everything to the bottom. So that's a little bit about alignments. Now, we got one more condition. Let's just say you don't have this perfect row. You have some columns left out, and this is how your setup is, right? You have these two. And they're like, hey, I don't want these two to be like this, and I don't want to set any offset or columns on both ends for them to be centered out. So what you can do is just mention justify content center. So justify content comes with again 5 options actually. You have start, which is by default what it is right now. It starts from the start, all the elements. Or you can say center. What it does is it actually aligns the columns in the center. And then you have, of course, the and, which is opposite to the start and takes it all the way to the right side. And then interesting thing is you have a round. What a round does is it takes the whatever left out columns are and then spreads them around the element. So you have the spacing around it, which is why you have like double spacing here because it's equal spacing. It goes around here and around here. So the next you have is between. As the name itself, rather than around, you have all the available spacing in between, and these two are pushed aside. You could also try this, let's just say with a different width, just to show you. There we go. So as you can see, it leaves those width to those two elements, and whatever is left kind of goes in the center. So that's a little bit about how the alignment works. Now the next thing, let's see what else we got here. So no gutter. What this no gutter does is, by default, the rows and column elements have the certain padding and margin that it comes with. I can show you, give me a second. I'm just going to add a paragraph tag inside, and then I will do a background and paragraph so you can see what I'm talking about when I say margin. Let's just do the P tag there. There we go. So I'm just going to take that out. There we go. So simply now you can see that there's a little bit of spacing here. That is because each column has certain padding, and then rows have a margin as well, which makes up for the layout. So when you say no gutter, Bootstrap ignores all, like removes the styling of all the padding and margin and lets you actually have it on its own. Oh, did I spell that wrong? Let's see. Yep, so it has an S in here, so it's gutters, and there we go. Yep, so you can see now that the padding and the margin is gone, and then it's just pretty much straight out content after content. So that's what no gutters does. It pretty much removes all the extra padding and stuff out. Last two concept as far as the layouts go is we have ordering and then margin left and right. I'm going to talk about ordering first. So let's say I'm just going to put multiple elements here. Let's say now you got three different columns, and we'll call it first. Oop, and then let's do this as second, and then third. So let's just say this is how you just set it up, but for some reason you want to have them ordered in a different way when they're on a medium screen and different on a larger or smaller screen. So the way you could do it is you could just say order, and then on a medium screen I want it to be at the end, and then so I give it a 3, and then I want it to be just in the center, doesn't matter, and I want this to switch, so I would do 1. So if I save that and let's say I refresh it, so you can see the third actually came first because we gave it an order 1, and the second was in the second because we just lifted a 2, and the first we gave it an order of 3, so it entered the third. So you can use an order class from up to 1 to 12, of course, but let's just say for some reason you just didn't give it an order, you left it there, right? And then you just change the order of this. What happens now? You would actually leave the first element the way it is, and then these two just switch as per the order mentioned in there. In order to actually be able to force one element to move all the way to the beginning, you rather than using order dash 1 to 12, you would just do order dash first. What this does is this pretty much overrides anything that's in the beginning and just pushes the one that has first to be pushed all the way to the front. And of course, you can mix and match it with any of the breaking points that you chose to use and reorder them. Just let me remove that. Oop. And let's say you wanted it order 3. So now I've reordered the elements. I just want to show you how the breaking point works out. So there you go. So here you have third coming. So we just swapped these two spots and we left it there. And now we're on large screen. So it's just going to take the next available styling, which is for the medium screen, and just apply that here. So as we just keep going lower and lower and keep passing it, you can see how third and first here, as you do it smaller, you can see that it actually changes spots. Third to first is swap them because we actually passed that medium breaking point. At this point, Bootstrap will be like, okay, that ordering system is now done. It's going to see if there's any styling mentioned for the rest of the smaller screen breaking points. If it does not find anything, it just reorders the elements the way they are. It's pretty cool. Just keep experimenting with it and see what else or how you would like to do the layout for that. So what does margin left and right do? So let me just remove the ordering for a second. I'm going to show you how that works out. So margin left and margin right. Margin left as MR, as you can see what it does, it takes whatever the left column's width is in that row and then pushes it to the left. So let's say ML auto, since it's the first element, there we go, and refresh it. So you can see that whatever the left out column width is, since we did margin left auto, it takes up all the available width here. Let's say now that we mention this on the second element too. So it takes the available left out column width and then puts it on two elements instead. And if you actually do it on the third two, it goes divided by 3. So in same logic, let's just say rather than having it on the left margin, you want it on the right margin. All you do is make it MR instead of ML and refresh it, and there you go, you have it on the left. So these are the few things when it comes to Bootstrap, just to give you a brief rundown on things. I'm just going to give you a review on what it is. So container and container fluid. Container keeps the width at the certain maximum width, and then the container fluid pretty much just runs down the whole page, while you have breaking points of small, medium, large, and Excel, and then the smallest you don't have to mention a breaking point at all. And the columns run from 1 to 12, and if you do not have current breaking points columns set, it will take the next available smaller screen's breaking point and apply that to your current layout styling. And then column dash auto takes the variable width, which in turn it just takes the width of the content and then adjusts it as per the screen size. While column itself is automatically fixing the widths. So this is like for the instance, the one we discussed is when you have an odd column set and you want the rest of it divided up in for two columns, you can just use col, and that would take the rest of the width and then spread it out to both the elements or 3 or 4, or no matter how many elements you have mentioned, it just spreads the equal width to the rest of them. So align, just I have align items, which goes for the row. You have start, center, end. Align self, it goes for start, center, end for columns. Justify content is applied to rows to justify the columns into center and start around between. Gutters is for the margin and padding. Ordering elements is to reorder the columns in certain way you want along with the breaking points. And ML is for margin left and MR is for margin auto. So do give it a try, see how it works out for you, and just keep experimenting with it. That's the easiest way to learn is just keep playing with it until you get it. I'm gonna post all these tutorials on cyborgkitty.com in case if anybody is interested in further checking it out. And yeah, we do also have exercises and template generators on there in case if you're curious to check it out. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Have fun. Bye.